Hi guys, welcome back. It's Mission Impossible here back again. Before we go into this video, please like and subscribe, comment, you know what the drill. But today it is going to be about secret project number 3. There was a spoiler stream last Tuesday. It was Wednesday for me, so this is why this video is a bit later than usual. But in it, essentially, the story is in 2 parts. On the one hand, we have a painter. He calls himself Painter. He has another name. I think it was a Nikamu. And he's a nightmare painter living in a world with only 1 star. And otherwise, all of it is darkness. This is due to something that happened 17 centuries ago, where darkness just descended on that world. We don't know why yet, but it has formed a shroud over all of the world, and only some cities here and there are lit by the hions or hions. I don't know the exact pronunciation, but those are twin bands of pure energy, thick as a wrist, as a normal person's wrist, and they're about 20 feet above street level. And there are 2 colors, magenta and cyan, which are not coincidentally 2 of the 3 print colors, but we'll get into that later. And he and hundreds of others are known as nightmare painters, and they protect all of the cities, in this case it's called Kilahito, his city, from nightmares. Nightmares are invested creatures that look like darkness dripping out of them, and they feed on dreams. But they are not very strong in the sense that they change with perception. So for example, Painter comes across a nightmare, he puts his canvas over here and starts painting. He paints bamboo a lot, so when he starts painting bamboo, the nightmare slowly changes into a piece of bamboo. Essentially, they're harmless as long as they haven't made a lot of runs. So if they make 1 run and go back, they're harmless. If they make 10 runs and go back, they're very dangerous. If they make 13 runs, that's the perfect number, and it means they are apocalyptic level dangerous. They become more and more solid, of course, also after every run. He knows of the other cities because his parents are in a city far away, and there are even trains that travel on these hions. These hions are not only pure energy, but they are powering a lot. They power trains, they power lights, they power signs, they just give light as well. I'll come into all of that later. They also know that there are other planets, or at least 1, because there is a plan going on at the moment of the story to travel to their 1 star, the 1 star they can see, which is most likely the world of the other main character of this story. So, after being scolded by his supervisor that he has drawn yet another piece of bamboo, he goes back home, encounters a very strong nightmare that has done at least 10 runs. He scares it off, then he goes home, or then he continues on home, and he comes to his senses and looks at the star. But 2 seconds later, he looks up, and then something hits him in the head, and everything goes black. So that's part of his story. The stories actually alternate in the first few chapters, but I found it easier to just put Painter's and then Yumi's not next to each other, but after each other. Also, it's mentioned that for these stronger nightmares, there is a specialized division called the Dream Watch to subdue them. So it was actually too hard for Painter, but he did it anyway. And onto, of course, the other character. She's a girl called Yumi, and she is a, what's the word? Yoki Hijo, one of the 14 girls that have been chosen at birth to communicate with the spirits. The world is Korean inspired, as you might have already guessed by the name. And because she is one of the chosen, everything she does is ritual. Even eating is a ritual, or getting fed even, because she doesn't eat herself. Sleeping is a ritual as well. So everything is ceremonial, and she feels trapped. And it's very clearly mentioned and very well elaborated on even in these short chapters, that she feels trapped. The world itself is extremely hot. They have a red sun, which is bigger and closer than our sun, making everything very, very warm, even hot. But they also have a day star, one day star that glows very bright as well, which is most likely, of course, Painter's world. Having this big star makes everything, including the Earth, very hot. By night it's warm, it's not cold, it's not hot, it's cooler, but it's still warm. And due to that being so hot, almost nothing touches the ground. Even the plants are flying, the houses are flying, or at least levitating, or built on stilts. The houses are in two tiers. There's this one part built on stilts to, well, one, escape the hot ground, of course, but also to make airflow under it to cool it down. And the other part is on the ground, and this is for nighttime, essentially. Because they sleep on the ground because it's so comfortably warm. Everything is levitating by day, and by night it comes closer to the ground. Considering water, it's not rare in itself, but it's centralized. For example, rivers are impossible because it's way too hot, so the ground is way too hot, so once water touches the ground, it just evaporates immediately. So a lot of moisture is in the air, and it's also very important to catch the rain, because if they don't catch it, it's evaporating again, so they have to wait for the water again to rain down. They also have steam wells, which are very, very important. They catch the steam and they catch the water that comes out, because it's never pure steam that comes out of it, of course. So in the story, Yumi has to do her ritual in the place of ritual. There's a name for it, but I can't remember it. But she has to ritually summon spirits through art. There are three pillars, and it's creation, art, and organization. So in her case, she does it through stone stacking. And she chooses to do it in a spiral according to the Fibonacci sequence, or the golden ratio as we know it. She summons a record number, I think it's 37 of spirits, which is about 6 times the average, and almost double her previous record of 20. And once they are summoned, they summon people, and those people just come in there and say, okay, I have need of light. She talks to the spirit says, okay, and he splits and becomes light. Then there's someone else. I want a flyer, to levitate off of the ground, to travel, to catch crows, because crows are apparently a problem. Something like that. Then there's someone else who wants a repelling factor to suspend plants or trees or whatever else off of the superheated floor. So she grants all of those requests one by one, and by the end she's exhausted. And she mentions that essentially you can make everything out of a spirit on the condition that it's both willing and that you can properly formulate the request. She passes out, and once she wakes, she gets scolded by her warden because she has done or has summoned so many spirits that she has shamed other cities, in the sense that she summoned 37 here, why can't you do the same for the other cities? So she just feels guilty. And a bit later she feels / hears a spirit in her mind that's communicating with her, and the spirit tells her they are trapped, just like she is. They are bound. And the spirits want her to free them from their terrible existence, which she does not know of. She only knows the spirits, but she does not know of that terrible existence. She agrees, telling the spirits that she has been blessed by them, and once she agrees, she passes out again. So both of them are now passed out, and they both wake up at the same time. And Painter is in Yumi's body. He still sees himself as himself, but he wakes up wearing Yumi's clothes. Next to him is Yumi. She does not have a body. She's incorporeal. And Brandon has confirmed that he has to do her job by day, and when they sleep, it switches. She has to do his job, and then she is in his body, and he is incorporeal. And that's actually the end of that story for now, but we have a spoiler stream. And boy, it was a great one this time. It was way better than the previous two because a lot of people asked a lot of smart questions. So I have decided to split it into some parts because it's actually so big. And so I'll start with the story itself. The romance, according to Brandon, will be a big part of this story. It's not the plot, but it's a big part of the plot. More focused on romance than in his other novels. So that's one. He has also mentioned that the languages share the same root of both Yumi and Painter, implying, of course, in my opinion, that one or the other has moved from one planet to the other. I mean, their ancestors. We see Hoyd as well in the story because Design has a noodle shop, his Spren, and Hoyd is there just frozen in time. He has been spray painted copper and he's been used as a coat rack. And he says that him being frozen in time is an ailment, implying it's involuntary, but it's a raffle. Brandon has said that this is a plot point in the book and it might be related to his long life, but alas, for now it's a raffle. He has also mentioned that Hoyd was there for the stories, so it's 19 stories, so Yumi, Painter, and Tress, Secret Project 1. So they're 99% true, but he does take some artistic liberties. He is, however, confirmed to have a supernatural ability to get close to the soul of the stories and retain the stories, so we can consider it canon, actually. And as in Secret Project number 3, we'll have to figure out on our own to whom the story is being told. However, it's not going to be as obvious as we think. So that was the story. Some other parts of a world building. He's mentioned that Painter's world is similar to 1900s Tokyo, that the darkness in his world is due to the shroud, is something that we have already semi-found out, and that it was 17 centuries ago, so 1700 years ago. The people have adapted slightly to the darkness, but they haven't evolved. Because 17th century is not long enough time to evolve, but they have adapted. Yeah, for Painter's world, that's about it. I think for Yumi's world, yeah, it's not just the thermals that let people fly, or trees and plants fly. So it's not just because of the heat rising up that the plants stay floated. There is something else at work. So this, of course, implies spirits or magic, or even magical spirits that are being forced. We don't know yet, but this will probably be revealed. Oh yeah, he's also mentioned that we can see through the shroud with tin allomancy. Next up, and this is, in my opinion, the biggest part of this, or the most important part of this spoiler stream, it's the magic and the shards. So let's start with the shard. It's called Virtuosity. And it is representing artistic talents on one hand and artistic representation on the other hand. It's also implied by Brandon and Emily in the stream that it's a good guess when we guess that Virtuosity is the shard that Hoyd has rejected way back. The Fibonacci sequence and the golden ratio and the number 13 have a connection to both the nightmares and the spirits, and it's been confirmed that the number 13 is to virtuosity, as number 16 is to preservation and number 10 is to honor. So we will probably be seeing the number 13 a lot in this secret project. Virtuosity's story will be in the later book, because in between Virtuosity splintering herself, 17,000 years ago, and 17 centuries ago, and the shattering about 10,000 years ago, so there is about over 8,000 years, she has been exploring, or he, I don't know, the Shard has been exploring the Cosmere, but never actually settling anywhere. So we will probably meet Virtuosity again in some different books. Not yet for now, but we will probably meet it. We have, of course, Nightblood too. And Nightblood is kind of connected to the Nightmares because their aura is very much alike, and Brandon has said that this was intentional. He's also mentioned that Nightblood would feed upon the investiture of the Shroud when Nightblood is dropped into the Shroud. There's a connection there that we don't know yet, but we will. So this is something that has several implications, of which I am not sure, but there are several. Yeah, that's it for now, I think, for the Shards. When we see Painter's magic, we see he transforms things in the same way that Spren are transformed by perception, so kind of like quantum physics. He doesn't use investiture. He is not invested. Well, at least, no. He hasn't said he's not invested. He doesn't use investiture for that, but he might be invested. I don't know. But he does not use investiture for the transformations of the Nightmares, but because the Nightmares don't have this overseeing higher power like the Spren do with honor, they're more susceptible to the changes, so they're not as strong as the Spren are. He would also not be as accurate with the Spren as he is with the Nightmares, but he would be able to trap them. So there's a connection there between trapping Spren and Fabrials and the magic system. He's also mentioned, as I've already said, he doesn't use investiture for this, but he would not be stronger than anyone else learning the same methods and using the same methods. So he's just kind of this run-of-the-mill, not special. I mean, he will probably be special, but for now, for his painting, he does not use, or he is not magically better than anyone else. There has been a mention of light weavers, and they would be extremely good at what Painter does. So this implies that what Painter does is not magic, but that there is magic in the world. Probably, of course, the hions. I'll come to those in a second. Last bit for Painter. Him and Yumi are using the same magic system. It's weird, but not really the same magic system, but their magic systems have the same basis. Would most likely be a better pronunciation or better explanation of it. So that's it for Painter. Let's go on to the creatures. There's the Hion, there's the Nightmares, and there's the Spirits. As I have said, the Hion's colors are magenta and cyan, two of the printer's colors. The third one is yellow, and it's not a coincidence. This was intentional, making yellow probably have some importance in the rest of the story. Personally, I think that Painter will be able to manipulate the yellow color, or maybe even all colors. Make use of the yellow color, or make it, I don't know yet, but it's implied that he is invested, or at least has access to magic. And this will of course be relevant to the story. The Hion might also be a spirit, actually. That's another way to look at it, another perspective, because when people asked about it, Brandon and Emily, his wife, had this facial expression which told a lot more than the 7 chapters he has already written. Their facial expression was an expression of yeah, you know it, but we know it for sure, you don't know it yet. It's something like that. They had something to hide. Of course, in the spoiler stream they always do. But it was obvious that this question was spot on. There are also Fae mentioned. not really important for now, but they are invested beings like Spren and Sion from Elantris. But they will return in the Cosmere, but it won't be in Secret Project 4, it'll be somewhere later. For now, they're just a slight mention. What else? Yeah, it would be theoretically possible to form a Nahel bond with the Nightmare. It's something that Brandon has also said. And speaking of nightmares, they're confirmed to have a reaction to silver. So of course there's this connection with Tress, because there was also a reaction to silver with Apollon, and the connection to the Shades on Trinity, because they also are repelled by silver. So there's something strange going on there, just like the relationship between spirits and Spren, because I think that while... I think that they're actually... How to put this? They both show up in the vicinity of the representation of a concept. I think is the most accurate way to describe it. And last but not least, of course, when we're talking about Brandon Sanderson, we are talking about the Cosmere. And there are some small links to the Cosmere. Of course, we have Hoyd. He calls himself an interdimensional storyteller, and this is because he travels the three realms, physical, spiritual, and cognitive realms. So it's not because he's multiversal. Brandon has confirmed that there is no multi-Cosmere or no multiverse or Cosmere-verse, stuff like that, no. Or multi-mere, I think was the correct term someone used. So there's no multiverse, it's off limits. Speaking of Hoyd, he might also be talking to different people on different planets at the same time, not unlike a radio or podcast. This was a question of one of the viewers, and Brandon had a very odd reaction to it, implying that he has something to say about it or wanted to agree/disagree, but he said it's a Rapho. Even though his face told us more than he would have wanted to tell in words. What else for the Cosmere? Yeah, well, of course, there's the audience. With all the references to Scadrial and Roshar in both those stories, it's confirmed that the audience has been on both worlds. This implies shards or world hoppers. So personally, I think it might be to Kelsier and his band of Ghostbloods, or Chris, because Chris knows way too damn much about the Cosmere. I think it's Chris, because we all know he hates Kelsier, or they hate each other. So I think it's Chris, but it might be someone else as well. But it's implied that they have been both on Scadrial and Roshar. Last but not least, speaking of Roshar, there is the Nimi suffix when she says warn the Nimi, and that's something that Seth also uses when he speaks about his sword Nightblood. He says sword Nimi, and the Shin use that, of course, as well. The use of this word by Hoyd was intentional. So again, this relates to people that know Roshar. We might have a Rosharian world hopper as well in the future. We don't know yet. We have still yet to see 6 Stormlight books, so who knows. But that's about it. That's all we know. Last thing, that's not really for sure, that Secret Project number 4 is related to Stormlight. We know that. It's Stormlight adjacent. He also said it's Roshar adjacent, so this implies that it will be on Ashen, where he's already written some kind of novel or novella about it, but didn't want to reveal it yet. But Ashen is the world where people gain their magic through disease. But for now, guys, it's Thursday, so this means that we will be able to see Secret Project number 4's first chapters today. So enjoy those. I will try to read it before I go to work in about an hour or two. And I hope you guys do the same. And we'll see each other next week, probably again on Thursday, for the last video about Brandon Secrets project, because I'll wait again until after the spoiler stream. For now, guys, mission accomplished. See you next week.